All right. Good morning. We'll go ahead and get started right here on the hour. My name is Jessica Colick. I'm joined today by my colleague Paige Bowger. We're both lead service line technical assistance program specialists. We're also joined today in the chat by Colin Zollinger, the community assistance supervisor. Usually we're joined today by Greg Montgomery, but the legislator has taken him for the day. So any questions that you might have for Greg, we're happy to pass on. As I present today, please feel free to throw any questions either in the chat and Q&A. Paige and Colin will be reviewing those, and then I'll go over them at the end. All right, so today we are talking about lead service line inventory, replacement planning, and technical assistance. So really we're covering what the lead and copper rule has as far as lead service lines and what technical assistance the Department of Commerce has to help with that. So first, we'll go over the timeline for lead service lines. So the initial inventory for all lead service lines was due to the EPA by October 16th, 2024. That date has passed. So next, we're looking at remaining unknown lines identified and due back to the EPA by October 2027. And then the final timeline and major goal for this for the lead and copper rule is to have all lead lines replaced by 2037. So what has happened if the inventory, or what happens if the inventory has not been submitted by the deadline? So as you know, that October 16th, 2024 deadline has passed. So any public water system that did not submit their initial inventory will have two sanctions imposed by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. Because Montana does not have primacy, we cannot say how those sanctions will be enforced, but we can say that it could be anywhere from like a warning to a financial fine. So we definitely want our public water systems to have that inventory submitted, because once they submit that inventory, those sanctions will be lifted by the EPA. I also wanted to note on here that public water systems can submit inventories with unknown lines, and the inventory will need to be updated and these unknown lines are identified. So even if if you've started your initial inventory and you have like 25% of the lines inventoried, it would be worth it to submit with all like the rest, that 75% unknown, to have those sanctions lifted and then work until 2027 to have those unknown lines identified. So the Department of Commerce has technical assistance available to public water systems to help complete these first two steps in this process. And who is eligible for these? Community and non-transient, non-community public water systems. So if you're a public water system and you're unsure if you fall under those guidelines, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to look you up and see if you are eligible for our program. Also, any public water systems that have already submitted their inventory on their own are eligible for the additional assistance to help look at unknown lines or create a replacement plan. Also, federally owned systems are not eligible for the technical assistance. So what can technical assistance help for? So first, submitting that initial inventory. We're still helping public water systems with that. We know about around the 200 mark of public water systems have not submitted their initial inventory. So if that applies to you or a water system you know, feel free to refer them to us. With that initial inventory, we would assign out one of our service providers, and they will help the system look at reviewing records, performing community outreach, whether that's like a survey or going door to door, just reviewing those service lines that there isn't record of, and then also carrying out field work to obtain the inventory data that is all covered under the submitting the initial inventory. And then the service providers will also help complete the DEQ template and submit that initial inventory to the EPA or DEQ. Next, our technical assistants can also help with identifying unknowns. So with that 2027 deadline, all unknown service lines will need to be identified whether or not they are lead or needing to be replaced at all. Our procured service providers will be assigned to help identify these unknown lines. These methods also include submitting surveys to homeowners, visual inspection, and if need be, renting back trucks and to daylight lines or doing water testing to confirm whether or not the lines are lead. And next we have technical assistance available to help with replacement planning. A procured service provider can review the completed inventory, create EPA required planning documents, and prepare documents such as a lead lines focused professional engineering report or a PER. All of this is very helpful in applying for other funding to get the lead lines replaced. Like being prepared and having these replacement plans available will help to apply for like SRF funding through DEQ. Just to get the ball rolling and have your plan in place. DEQ is currently developing a replacement plan template that is required by the EPA. So at this time, we have the procured service providers available, but we're still waiting on that replacement plan template before we approve replacement planning activities. But we have until 2027 to get those replacement plans to the EPA. And let's go over some limits of technical assistance. So for the initial inventory process, we are approving the initial inventory in 100-hour maximum increments. And then for unknown and unknown identification and replacement planning, we're capping those hours at about 150 hours or 22,500 hours or $22,500, excuse me. The reason that we're putting the cap on that is just to make sure that there are funds available. We know that renting back trucks especially can get expensive. So we want to help as many communities as possible with the hours. And that is why we've put the cap on that unknown identification and replacement plan activity. And then a little bit more example here for funding cap. Example, a system may use a portion of their capped $22,500 in funds to rent a vac truck for unknown ID. However, the vac truck costs and the service provider hourly rate together cannot exceed the cap of $22,500. All right, next, how to apply. So for the initials, inventory systems will submit the application through our ServiceNow website. The link to that ServiceNow website is on our lead service lines page. I believe Colin will he might have, yep, he already put our link in the chat for everyone. So if you want to head over to our website, you'll find the link to that to apply for initial inventory, including some resources that we have on there as well for templates, the DEQ and EPA templates to submit your inventories through, and then also some great training training to go through every step of like the initial inventory on how to fill out the inventory template as well. That is all on our website. And then for unknown identification replacement planning, we would like an email. So reach out to myself or Paige at Commerce, and our contact information is on the last slide. And then we'll get you processed, and we have a short emailed application that we have. And we'll review and get back to you as soon as possible for unknown identification replacement planning. And the last thing we have here is our contact information. So you'll see all of us, we're happy to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to call or email us. We're happy to talk it through. All right, so I see that we have a question in Q&A. Oh, great. So Kitty asks if a community has already gotten assistance for the inventory, can they get the 22,500 for the unknown ID and replacement planning? Yes, they can. Um, so we're considering them two different steps in the process. So if they've already gone through us for their initial inventory, um, any like unknown identification planning will start that 22,500 cap. All right. And I'm just gonna hang out here for another couple minutes. If anybody wants to throw anything in the chat, or if anybody would like to raise their hand, we can unmute you. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions come through, but like I said, please screenshot this page, get our contact information. Feel free to call or email us. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. Um, and we will record this presentation. So if there's anybody that you know that wants a copy of this to go over because they were unable to attend, we're happy to share this presentation as well. But I'll go ahead and let everybody go on this fine morning. Hope you have a good rest of the week and a great weekend.